I'm Tabitha Rock.
And I'm Sam Davenport.
Born and bred in Melbourne, we live and breathe property, and we know the Melbourne market like the back of our hand. We've both been buying and selling real estate in Metro Melbourne for over 2 decades combined, and we've learned a few lessons along the way. Another episode of the glorious Property Culture podcast series.
So happy to be here.
So happy to be here, but we've got a dry topic. Is it dry?
I mean, heaps of what we cover is pretty dry.
Is it?
Finance?
Finance. I know,
Is
but
finance
money.
fun? Money?
People find that interesting.
Spending money.
Spending money.
Fun.
And budgeting.
Budgeting.
Boom.
Boom, boom.
But
Body Corporate's explained what buyers need to know. And it seems that there is confusion. Not from everyone, but from, once again, we assume there's a lot of people listening who are first-time buyers, perhaps.
Oftentimes people come and say, I will not buy in a body corporate.
Categorical.
And I'm like, why?
Why? Well, Judy's friend, she lived in one in 1972, and she said that's the reason why they're not going to look at an entire spectrum of amazing property options.
Yeah.
Because Judy's friend in 1972.
Yeah. You're involved in a body corporate if there's 3 or more properties on a block. So sometimes that body corporate is inactive, but most often it's active.
And that's what we'll mostly cover off today.
Absolutely.
Like, we won't go too much into the inactive body corp because it's not really applicable to what we're talking about right now. So let's start with owner's corporation. What is it? What does it mean?
Definition.
I'll give us our definition. What is a body corporate? A body corporate or owner's corporation or strata management scheme is the legal entity formed by all owners in a strata titled property like an apartment or townhouse complex to jointly manage and maintain shared common property. It enforces rules for the benefit of all members, and essentially when you buy a unit in such a property, you automatically become a member responsible for shared costs and decisions about the common areas.
I mean, that was very succinct and I really liked that definition. So thank you.
Go.
Probably ChatGPT?
Always.
Or Google.
AI overview.
Oh.
I Googled and it gave me an AI overview. But yeah, I mean, key functions. Obviously, we've got the key functions, we've got the key terms, we've got it all here. But our experience working with buyers who are looking to buy property that lands in a body corporate, usually based on location and budget, obviously, apartment buyers, unit buyers, townhouse buyers, there seems to be a bit of misunderstanding about.
Yeah, I think they're seen quite negatively and I don't think they need to be. Obviously, any block with huge volumes of apartments, I think that that's where body corporates become really clunky, and that's because there's so many members of the body corporate and trying to make decisions and trying to get consensus, where if you're in a small block of 70s flats, and I often say to clients, like, being part of a body corporate is great. Like, everyone's chipping away, putting in their quarterly fees, and then hopefully as part of those quarterly fees, they've got sort of the admin fund, which pays out your insurances and your garden maintenance and all that sort of stuff. And
management fees.
And the management fees, I was just going to say.
Insurance majority number 1, management fees number 2.
Yeah. But then hopefully you'll have this maintenance fund.
Yeah.
And I always say to clients, if they're looking at buying into a block, that if there's this maintenance fund, you're spending other people's money to make your block better and therefore increase your sale price. So it can actually get on the body corporate and be quite active, like be the chairperson and go to the meetings. It's only 1 meeting a year,
I know.
typically on Zoom these days. So
I wish it was more, to be honest.
Oh, it should be every 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, is that, like, ideally you're part of a body corporate that's active. If you're in a small one, you can really be the ringleader for that if it's inactive. If they're sort of, you look at the most recent minutes and you can see that no one turned up to the meeting.
I think when you're saying inactive, you mean that people aren't involved.
The people aren't being involved,
and proactive.
Yeah, I mean, if people aren't turning up to meetings and, you know, you talk about the opportunity to spend others' money and the opportunity to pull together to increase the value of the building by doing small maintenance items and things like that. I mean, that's fantastic, but it's interesting because obviously there's a flip side to that. You know, just this morning I was looking at a really great, massive apartment in a walk-up, low-density, 1960s apartment block in Elwood, single lock-up garage, 2 to 3 bedrooms, internal corner block, so beautiful sunlight coming through east, northern side. Every single window was it's near the beach, impossible to see out the window because it needed to be cleaned from the exterior.
Oh.
And so that's a body corporate job. And then once you go up and you look at that and you go, Jesus, and then that's now you pull the string. And so now I'm looking at the windows, I go, okay, so these windows haven't been cleaned. I would take a stab in the dark for the last 5 years. That's how bad it was. Really, that's an annual job that should be annually done. And then you start looking out and you go, the building needs a wash down. It is thick with dust and grime and everything. And then you start thinking, well, what's going on with the gutters?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then I'm like, well, where in the roof space, what's happening? You know, and that can cause major issues moving forward. So if they're not even doing minor maintenance items in a year, that can be a problem. So in terms of being part of a body corporate and getting yourself into a building like that, that could lead you down the garden path of problems.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people will probably be listening to this being like, yeah, cool. Okay, so how do I safeguard myself and make sure that this sort of stuff I don't come across? Obviously, building and pest inspections to, you know, get general idea of how
the property
block is. Because I've had a building inspection on a 70s block and they flagged the drainage around the property and then found big cracks, and because they did look in the communal parts of the block, which is great, and they were like, no, this is not one to pursue. So obviously that's one component, running your own eye or the building inspector's eye over the block. The second one is to look into the AGM minutes within a contract. And we always say to clients, that is where we can help you if we're looking for an apartment or a townhouse for you, because we don't even get you to fall in love with the property unless we've cited that contract and 100%. We've had a look at the AGM minutes. Because if they've got roof replacements, which I'm hearing more and more at the moment for that 70s block, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's the time frame. It's 50 years.
Yeah. They're all getting the new roofs.
Yeah.
So, you know, if they're chatting, or there was another one I've looked at recently and I'm like, hang on a second, what's all this chatter about X, Y, and Z? And then something you've got to sort of navigate is, back in the day, we used to call body corporates and they used to tell us all warts and all about the property. And now
they don't.
They won't.
I know,
disclose to anyone who's not an owner. So even the agent can't call the body corporate and find out.
That's actually been a real difficult thing to sort of overcome, because I used to just get all the information I needed, because the most recent AGM, if the number one red flag is no one had turned up, so the conversation wasn't had. So what I need to know is the one before that and the one before that, and what about is, you know, what's the conversation in the building? If they didn't have it in the AGM, I don't know. So that is, yeah.
And this is a bit of a side deviation, but I don't know how you can represent how well a block is maintained with other owners, because I just bought in a complex in Doncaster for a client, and there's the committee chairperson is so proactive and so onto it and lives in the block and they have like book clubs and have such a great community, and none of that you can actually communicate through the AGM minutes. So, which is disappointing. Whilst yes, you can sort of see, because maybe a few more owners turn up to the meeting, so maybe we've got sort of 50% owner attendance. And to be honest, that's probably as good as you're going to get. It's when you're seeing sort of like 30% of the owners turn up, you're like, oh, this is a really disengaged block.
Yeah.
But 50% would be great.
And so if with the disengaged block, so if you're then looking at the building or the block or the property, and you're thinking, this would be great if I could just put a gate here on the exterior, or make the car parking secure, or this would be great if I could paint the stairwells. Don't think that that's going to be easy if you've got a disengaged body corporate, you know. But then on the flip side of that, when you've got 100% attendance, you go to an open for inspection, here come the neighbours. Hello? Who's our new neighbour going to be? You know, you don't want them too involved.
Oh, no, surveillance Sally.
Surveillance Sally is your new neighbour. That could be your new different type of problem.
Yeah.
And how do you know that sort of stuff before you go in again? I mean, a little bit of a red flag is 100% attendance, really detailed minutes with a lot of conversation about minor issues where people are bringing them up about, they don't want Unit 2 to be doing X, Y, and Z. That's too much for me. I don't want that level of awareness in the block. Just keep to yourself a little bit. We're communal living as it is. We don't need to be watching each other that closely. Let Unit 2 do what they're doing.
Yeah, as we're chatting now, I actually think that one person we should get on the podcast is someone that's from Strata Management Company, because I think that would be interesting from their perspective, because more recently, I have found some fantastic body corporate companies.
I've got an amazing one. Patrick Ong, VBCS.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Well done, Patrick.
But also I want to know, because I know in property management it's so easy to move your management. If you're not satisfied with that property management and that firm, you can quite comfortably and easily move on to another one. Is it the same with body corporates? I'm actually not too sure, because some of the non-responsive, they've let maintenance go unanswered for a long time. And if maintenance goes unanswered, they don't let OH&S issues go unanswered for a while. So if there's, balustrades on or stairwell things that need to be different heights, they're straight onto that, because that's sort of a compliance issue. But other general maintenance, I just feel like some are falling sort of slack on. And they could be a lot better, and there are really good companies and people.
Yes.
So can you change?
100%. And some of the we've just covered off on some of the red flags to look out for in a body corporate, and really the only way you can do that is on physical inspection of the property, like we've said, but then obviously in reading those minutes, that recent AGM minutes. How have the minutes been taken? How much information is there? If there's nothing there, that's a red flag, and then obviously the alternate to that is if there's a lot in there that's being discussed in terms of issues in the building, that's a red flag too. I mean, you're a new buyer. You don't want to walk into existing issues that you already know about, because, I mean, there's a couple of buildings in St Kilda where they've got, these unknown leaks happening through the walls of the building, just throughout. And it's a 1960s building. So it's sort of like, I mean, where do you start and where do you stop with that? How do you attack it? It's been going on for years.
Yeah.
And it's this constant conversation in the body corporate minutes, and the property transacts in there a lot, but it's this ongoing issue. And what keeps happening is they keep getting it quoted.
It down the road.
Yeah, and the quotes are too high. So then they just sort of push on. They do another small, cheaper fix, and now it keeps going and it keeps going. And now it's at this point, it's been 5.5 years I know of that they've been dealing with it. And then there's another one further down the road where they're repairing or replacing 2 lifts. And it's quite a big building, again, older style building. So we really do preach about buying in these older style buildings, because there's just so many advantages to it. But you really got to be aware of, has it been maintained over time? What's happened to it recently? If the roof hasn't had a replacement or at least repairs in the last 5 years, and it's a 50-plus-year-old building, that's coming up. Just that's the reality.
Yeah.
You want to sort of be aware of these things, because the fees already just with insurances have increased astronomically. So now what used to be a baseline fee for these places has gone, double, triple the figure. So to do maintenance levies on top of that, you're now looking at any potential capital growth you might have get, or rent return is being chewed up by the fees.
Well, these new blocks that people buy into, I laugh, because when they're first launched with the most conservative cheap fees, 3 years later they've quadrupled.
Yes, I know, always.
Oh, and it just makes me so frustrated for the buyers, because they're like, they were sold on the fact it had low body corporates.
Yeah.
And that is definitely not a green flag. Like people often say that high body corporate fees are a red flag, and I'm like, oh, not necessarily. If, as I said, there's these 2 components of admin fund and maintenance fund, absolute green flag.
Yeah.
You are like future-proofing this block and making sure it's going to be looked after in the right manner,
Exactly.
which is
And that's where we see a lot of that in the downsizer specific buildings where they're clearly built for and advertised towards downsizers in certain locations, in the Turaks, in the Malverns, in the Armadales. You know, you've got 12 units, massive unit, beautiful apartments in these buildings, and the fees are like $4,000 a quarter, and it can feel like a money grab on one hand, but then once you really start to pick it apart and you go through and you really look at the block, you see how well it's been maintained. I mean, often they're washing your bins every month, you know, washing the communal bins, and it's beautiful and it's pristine, and people will pay for that.
Yeah,
you know, if you're in communal living now for maybe your first time in 2 decades or 3 decades, and you want it to be a certain way, perhaps you're suited to that type of building where it's high fees, or that's actually standard now. $4,000 a quarter is standard for those buildings.
I'm looking for a downsizer at the moment. Standard $15,000-$20,000
a
year.
Oh yeah,
and just a bit of personal experience. So a block that I'm in at the moment renting is managed so unbelievably well.
Yeah.
The building manager's fantastic. The windows are getting washed all the time.
Yeah.
The common areas are pristine. There's cleaners there 2 hours every single day.
Yeah.
Never any sort of rubbish floating around. There's no sort of rude signs that you see around the place.
Yeah, from neighbour to neighbour.
Passive-aggressive
Yeah.
sort of notes.
Yeah.
So I think you can get a sense of how a block's maintained even by that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
Looking out on the, you know,
In the lift, the notice to all owners, red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah.
There's someone who's pissed off who lives
Yeah.
in the building, and you're going to be living with them, you know.
I don't know why I feel like I need to mention this on this episode, but I will also suggest a little hot tip that if you do find yourself part of a body corporate and then you do expect to sell in the next 12 months, my hot tip is to make sure you attend that AGM meeting and make sure they don't talk about too many negative things.
Yeah.
I will
manage the impact.
manage what gets documented on those minutes, because that will be in your contract of sale when you go to sell. So the first property I ever purchased, didn't realise, but there was a apartment in there that was owned by the Department of Housing, and there was an interesting woman in there that had a few things flagged with the body corporate throughout the time, and I definitely went to my AGM that year and said, no one's mentioning about Unit 2. I want nothing documented, and nothing was documented about DHS housing in our block in that year. So, you know, it was a very beautiful, clean AGM minutes.
And everyone just complied.
Yeah, because ultimately I explained that the higher I get for my price, it'll
underpin the value of the property,
the whole block. So let's just keep it all, you know, nice and pretty.
Yeah. Roses and butterflies.
Exactly. But yeah, because I think that's important to note. Things like this can impact how you sell your property.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to get involved in your body corporate. They're not bad, but you do need to be slightly proactive.
It's an extension of the ownership of the property that it's your
Perfect
property
way
that
of
you
putting
own.
it. Yeah.
You know, that is part. That common area is part of the property you own.
Yeah,
and a buyer sees it like that, and a tenant sees it like that. Everyone does.
Actually, while I just think about it, another great way you can determine if the body corporate is active and responsive X, Y, and Z is to send through some questions to the agent to get them answered by the body corporate and see what sort of responses you get back. Because if it's very dismissive and not informative, or, you know, you can tell a bit from that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, this was a short and sweet episode, which didn't mind it.
Didn't mind it. Nothing wrong with that.
No, but important to cover, because obviously so many of us are affected by being involved in a body corporate. So it is important to sort of know what to look out for and how to sort of tell the good from the bad. But let's get stuck into our lovely
F, marry, kill.
Yeah.
F, marry, kill.
Talk to me.
Low body corporate fees with minimal services.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. We'll take it sometimes. Mm-hmm. Higher fees with strong maintenance and a sinking fund. or just no body corporate at all?
Okay. Well, I'll probably marry no body corporate at all. Because, you do have more decision makers. It gets murky. I would love just to be able to paint, do what I want to do. Because oftentimes when you're part of a body corporate, there is rules around blinds, that you can't put your washing out on the balcony, which I never do because I think that's not a vibe. So, yeah, no body corporate, I'm marrying that. I'm definitely effing the high fees with strong maintenance and a sinking fund. I think that if you're the other one, it's a high chance you're going to be struck with levies at some point during your ownership. And I just think, a small little sums along the way instead of one huge request for money is much better. So killing off the low body corporate fees.
Yeah, nice. The only thing I would say about that is that with that low body corporate fees and minimal services, it's usually in relation to a certain block.
Yes.
And that certain block is usually small enough with the common areas that if it was me as the owner, I'd probably just do the work myself and just cop the cost because I know it's adding the value to the property, or just go and speak to the neighbours and be like, do we want to do this? Like, I feel like that you can be a bit more influential perhaps in that scenario, whereas with the one that's obviously clearly being managed and set, it's quite set. So I feel like I could get what I wanted maybe out of the low body corp with the minimal services. I just take it over.
Yep.
And just convince people why.
But you're a person that will grab the bull by the horns.
Yeah.
Whereas there's not a lot of people. There's a few passive people.
Yeah. It takes energy and effort.
Yeah. So it depends what you're after.
True that.
Love it. Body corpse explained, hopefully.
Well, I know.
Enjoy.